Hey everyone, it's Rachawl. So today this video is going to be about something that caught my eye when I first saw it in news headlines. Basically, this is going to be a video where I break down the dangers of receipt paper and the chemicals that are used in them that are harmful to us. So receipt paper, we probably touch it every day, so I figured this would be a great video, especially me. I work at a job where we're touching receipt paper all of the time. So I figured it would be pretty relevant to learn about it, and then I thought after learning about it, why not share it with you? I feel like it would be a really great learning moment for most people, and we can learn about a chemical that's talked about all the time in headlines, and we really don't know what it is. So I'll break it down for you in this video. We'll get right into it. So here is the story. You drive into a drive-thru fast food restaurant, you order your food at the speaker, you get to that first window where you hand them your payment method and they hand you a receipt back. Or sometimes, if they're doing it all in the same window, they'll actually put the receipt in your food bag. So in these cases, that receipt is touching their hands, your food, your hands at some point if it's not going into the food bag. And it's interesting how many places that receipt actually touches by the time you throw it away. So it either stays in your purse for a few days like me, and yeah, your receipt just touches all these places you don't even realize. I started hearing things, reading articles recently that receipt paper has BPA in it. Now, BPA, I think my generation has learned about it in a very basic sense. We don't really know what it is, why it's bad, why is everything BPA free. We don't really know like the concept behind that. We just know that it's BPA free is good. I started a little bit of research into why receipt paper has BPA in it, considering I work at a job that we touch it all the time. And it's actually thermal paper that carries BPA. And the amounts that they were finding of BPA in this thermal paper was 100 times more than you would find in like a drinking cup, something that they always advertise as BPA free. So they're finding 100 times more BPA in thermal paper, which is the most common form of receipt paper in the US. So what is thermal paper? Thermal paper is a type of paper that uses heat instead of ink. This allows companies to save tons of money because they don't have to purchase ink for their printers. If you think about it, they're printing thousands of receipts a day, so they're definitely saving money somewhere. It also extends the life of the printer because the wear and tear is less on thermal tape printers, and it's actually extremely quick compared to an ink printer. Thermal paper was invented in 1965, but was not used commercially until 1969. And realistically, the thermal paper changed the paper industry forever. How is thermal paper made? Thermal paper starts as any other paper does. It starts from a wood pulp base, meaning they just crush up a bunch of wood and they smash it down and they make it into paper. And that paper is actually pretty thick and rigid, very texturized. So they use a thing called the pre-coat, which is what makes the paper smooth. Then is applied the thermal coat. This is coated in tons and tons of different chemicals to make the thermal coat. BPA, aka Bisphenol A, is the developer that they use for this receipt paper. Whenever the heat interacts with the BPA on the receipt paper, it becomes dark. That's the part of the receipt where the words appear. And then there's another chemical component that's actually like the cousin of BPA. It's called BPS, Bisphenol S, and that's used pretty regularly now, especially since BPA has been banned in many different ways. So what is BPA and what is BPS? And are they toxic for us? Bisphenol A and Bisphenol S are chemical cousins that are used in tons of different plastic products. It's usually pretty stable in some things, such as PVC pipe, where it's solidified into a solid and there's really no chance for leaching. But the way that they use this stuff on thermal paper is it's actually like a loose chemical. So it can actually rub off onto your skin. It will immediately absorb into your skin. It's not a very stable chemical in this form. Now, it doesn't always leach, okay? So if you touch a receipt, it's not immediately going to leach into your skin. What causes these chemicals to become unstable is a few different things. There's the risk of high temps, which if you think about it, the paper is literally heated up to make the words. So it's already being exposed to high temperature in the printer, or being exposed to some sort of acidic product. like any kind of chemicals that you might have in your purse that are acidic. Spilling like food products onto the receipt paper can also activate it as well and make it unstable. The reason that BPA even became a household name was because of the dangerous factors that it played with our hormones. It's actually known now as a pretty common hormone disruptor. What's a hormone disruptor? Okay, so hormone disruption is whenever anything enters the body and it acts as if it's a hormone. So in this case, BPA acts like it's estrogen. This can affect young children especially because if you're getting estrogen flowing into your body as a young child, it will affect the way that you develop hormonally. Now, pretty much anybody who gets a blood test done to check for BPA levels is going to find some BPA in their blood levels. Scientists have actually had an extremely hard time trying to perform a controlled study because it is nearly impossible to find people who don't have BPA in their blood. Many companies support the whole BPA-free movement because they invented the BPS, which is basically the cousin alternative to BPA. It's actually still known as a hormone disruptor and isn't much better than BPA, according to what I've read in the research. What's frustrating for people who are trying to study BPA and BPS is that by the time they get enough results to prove that these are dangerous hormone disruptors, the scientists that work for these companies come out with some new chemical that they're going to start marketing. So even if we say BPA is bad now, they've already moved on to a new chemical, BPS, and so now scientists are struggling to conduct good studies on BPS to find out if that's also just as bad as BPA. So how much BPA exposure are we talking about? So the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency tested 18 types of thermal paper in 2014. They found BPA and BPS in every single one. So their studies showed that people who are exposed to thermal paper on a daily, meaning people who work in fast food, people who work in retail, people who are constantly touching receipt paper, even the people that worked in the factories, they have a way higher blood level of BPA than people who don't. There's also 2 people who performed a study with students in a cafeteria to see how long they were holding their receipt paper and how long they were being exposed to the thermal receipts that they were given. So what they observed was that many people held the receipt for less than 1 minute and all the way up to 12 minutes. That was their average. But the disturbing part of this study that almost made me cringe was the fact that there were a handful of people that did these insane things with their receipts. One guy rolled it up into like a straw and used it to drink like a straw. They're trying to conduct a study about how dangerous BPA is, and this guy's literally using this BPA receipt as a straw. Another person was dabbing their lipstick with the receipt, and then the other person that was found in their study was using it to treat a wound on their arm. So like blotting blood off of their arm. It's super disturbing. The FDA has said many times that the amount of BPA that people take in on a daily basis is not dangerous. But from what I've read, their studies are kind of incorrect because what we learned from this other experiment with these 2 scientists were that people were holding their receipt paper anywhere from 1 minute to 12 minutes. And then obviously you saw the people that were using it as a straw and using it to blot their lipstick. But what the FDA has said is that people do not handle their receipts longer than 3 minutes. So their studies are a little bit different than what other researchers have found. So we're basically asking the FDA to reconduct their studies because they're obviously slightly incorrect. But now BPA has just been thrown out the window for most companies. They're not allowed to use it, or they just choose not to use it. So now we're on to new chemicals that we need to study. We need to just give up on the BPA and move forward. The FDA claims that if you drink 1,000 BPA-lined bottles in one day, it could potentially expose you to dangerous levels of BPA. But what they did not take into account were babies. In 2008, people started putting the puzzle pieces together of who was being affected by BPA the most. Children, babies. You think about it, babies are drinking out of bottles. There's tons of plastic things in their mouth all of the time. When you warm up a baby bottle in a baby bottle warmer, or even in the microwave, or however you do it, it's going to leach that BPA out into the milk. Even the formula tins that the formula is packed into were lined with BPA. So it was disturbing that we found out that babies were not only the most exposed, but because of their body weight and how big they are, they became quickly the most toxic. just spread through their bloodstream so much quicker. And multiple studies have shown that men who work around BPA and in factories that carry BPA, especially BPA that's loose, such as thermal paper, they experience more erectile dysfunction and other hormonal issues than men who do not work in environments surrounded by BPA. So is it safe to touch these receipts or not? My whole thing was I met a person who would actually refuse to take receipts, and she would make it a point to tell the restaurant to not let the receipt touch her food. I think that this is definitely something that you should think about going forward if you are having any hormone issues. If there's anything that's not quite adding up in your illness diagnosis and you are one of those people that works in a fast food restaurant or retail place where you're constantly touching receipts, I would definitely look into something and talk to your doctor about it. Many countries have already banned BPA and BPS, so the fact that the US has not banned them just doesn't really make sense to me. But we've seen this before. Many countries like the UK are quick to ban makeup products that are dangerous, way before the US does. What I'll be personally doing is the next time I get handed a receipt, I'll make sure to either throw it away immediately or ask them, I just don't need a receipt today. And when I'm at work, I do wear gloves, so I don't have to touch the receipts. But I've also, while looking up all this research for these BPA and receipts, I found that nitrile gloves also leach chemicals into your skin. So that's something that I'm going to have to look up as well, because those are what I wear at work, are nitrile gloves. Ever since COVID, that's pretty much the only gloves that's been available to us. Maybe I'll make another video about that since we've all been wearing gloves during the pandemic, I just say that because pretty much all my coworkers have been wearing gloves. But I have seen people in public that do wear gloves when they go to the store, especially in the middle of the pandemic when things were a little bit more scary. So what do I want you to take away from this video? I just want you to be aware of what BPA and BPS are. I think that our generation sees these stickers on cups saying BPA free and we assume, oh, that's great, it's safe, I can drink out of it. I didn't even know what BPA was, so thanks for letting me know. I think it's important that our generation really digs deep into these chemicals and what they are doing to our bodies. They're proven hormone disruptors. So I definitely urge you to do your own research, find out how much exposure you have at home. If you are exposed to any BPA in your household products, I highly recommend that you look into it. I think that receipts are a thing of the past anyway. I don't even understand why we still have them. I think with our technology these days, and especially with online ordering, mobile ordering becoming this huge billion-dollar industry, I think that we could afford to just put the receipts on our apps, put them on our phones, have them send us an email. I feel like I do that at most stores right now. So the fact that we haven't gone receiptless is kind of crazy. And it's also a huge waste of paper, in my opinion. And just as a reminder, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dermatologist. I am not advising you to avoid receipt paper at all costs. I am advising you to do your research, talk to your employers, find out if there is an option. There are options out there that are BPA and BPS free for thermal paper. So if you work at a company where you have control over things like that, I highly recommend you look into it. They're not that much more expensive. It's just finding the companies that make them. Like we've said, the chemicals that they're going to use in future thermal paper, probably just as harmful, but we don't know that because we haven't been able to conduct the tests on them that we want to. So if you can take steps to avoid touching a thermal receipt paper, go for it. But if you have no choice, maybe wear some gloves like me, touching receipts all day. I haven't experienced any hormone disruption that I know of, but I definitely would, like if I were you and you were working in the food service or you're working in retail, just take a step back and think, how much do you touch and how could you maybe avoid that in the future? Thanks for watching my video. I hope you can give me a like and subscribe to my channel. I will be breaking down nitrile gloves at some point if that interests you. Make sure to check out my other videos. I do health chat videos, things like this. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next week. Thanks.